Hi everyone, I'm Pari Kankaria, the Chief Secretary of Pixie and Pexels, a publishing house where we aim to publish dreams. Today, I have with me a fabulous author who is also a PhD scholar at IIT, Kanchan Sharma. So, Kanchan, over to you. Could you please introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, this is Kanchan Sharma. I am currently a doctoral candidate at IIT Bombay, and I have worked recently with Pixie and Pexels for two of my books, which have recently been published. One is The Raconteur, and the other is Midnight Cachinnation, which are both available on Amazon and Pixie and Pexels website as well. So, these are basically my second and my third book. Before this, I have one more book. And my basic genre of writing has so far been narrative poetry, but this time I have also experimented a little bit with thriller stories in Midnight Cachinnation. Yeah.
Okay. So, Kanchan, as we have heard often, and many of us had experienced it often, that childhood shapes us in some way or the other for
Yeah.
our adult. So, what do you feel has any experience from your childhood which has shaped you as an author?
So basically, yes, I have been writing like since I was really young. But when I look back at those writings, even what I have written like when I was 16 or 17 years old, it feels kind of cringe right now. But the good thing was that people around me have always encouraged me. And by people, I mean just my mom and my dad. So, yeah, like I did receive a lot of encouragement by my family and friends, but you also know that just that much validation is never enough, right? We always feel like we need more validation. We need more people
Yeah,
to
we
tell
need
us,
more people to
yeah,
confirm us that we are good enough.
that we are good. Like actually, we need a response from our audience. So since like I am a 90s kid, so when I was a teenager, internet wasn't much of a thing. We used to have Orkut and Facebook and all, but still writing on the internet was not a mainstream thing. So in my school, so I did my schooling from DPS Bhilai, and DPS Bhilai is known for brilliant students. Like we had the best in everything. We had best in sports and quiz and everything. So it was a very competitive arena. So for an introvert, shy kind of a person like me, uh, getting even some validation from there was not easy. So I did not really get much of validation initially, but as you must be knowing, since you have worked with me in this publication, I have dedicated the Raconteur, which is a book of my poems. I have dedicated it to Sudipta Sarkar ma'am. So people ask me that why, like, you have graduated school like 11 years ago. Why are you still like talking about school? So the thing is that one random day, like I was given some homework or something, and I had written a small poem as a homework. So when I read it out in class, ma'am was the one who was like struck, and she was like, "Wow, this girl has the potential to be an author one day." And that she clearly told me that, Kanchan, your poems need to be written and recited. Whatever thoughts you have, they have to be expressed. You have to come on stage, you have to be an orator, you have to give your speeches, you have to get all those things out. So she was the one who kind of dragged me, since I was a shy kid and a kind of a nobody in school. So she dragged me and she brought me to stage, and she was like, Kanchan, no, you have to speak, you have to recite your poems. They can't just sit in your diary. So that was the first major push that I received, and which is why I credit her even till date for like giving me this courage. And there were a few teachers that were there who constantly encouraged me, and which is why I finally gained the confidence to publish. I first published in 2014. Like I won't, even when I look
So
back to,
it's way back.
yeah, even when I look back to those writings, I find it comparatively cringe comparatively to what I have published now with you guys. So there, yeah, there is definitely a constant improvement, but that initial push that I received in my childhood from my school, that was like amazing. After that, I went to several institutes. Like I went to NIT Raipur for my bachelor's, then I went to IIT Kharagpur for my master's, and then to finally IIT Bombay. And since all these institutes are, they are very active, and they are very energized about bringing
They are
up
very
new talent.
competitive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not exactly competitive. Like they are very keen on bringing out the talent, like from
Yeah.
people.
You
They're,
you actually flourish
yeah,
there.
I flourished there, but the seed was sown in school, which is why I talk about school so much.
Yeah, I think that your experience with your teacher Sudipta ma'am actually helped you bring out that potential, bring out that
Yes.
writing skills from within yourself, express helped you express it.
Yeah, yeah.
So if I had to ask you that what would your greatest inspiration be for both the books? Like
Okay.
what how do you feel that like what inspires you to write on? What is it that is the it for you?
So actually, there are so many little things, but there is just one thing that since we have limited time, I will tell you. Like there was this one particular incident. I was about 16, 15, 16 years old, and I was asked to take care of a few little children. Like they were, one was 5, one was 6, one was 7, and they 4, 5 children, someone's, and they were like gone out with my parents, and I was supposed to take care of them. And I was not very good with children, to be honest. And so, and they were like immensely, like I would not name them, but they were immensely naughty and immensely mischievous, and they were just driving me crazy. I didn't know what to do. So I started telling them a story. So I was just going on inserting characters and twists and turns as I was telling them. I was like, पता है, चलो लेट्स सिट डाउन, आई वांट टू टेल यू स्टोरी. एक ना बहुत बड़ा एक अंधेरा किला था, उसमें मतलब पता नहीं क्या था, किसी को पता नहीं था क्या था. एंड देन कुछ लोग थे, वो लोग वहां पर पिकनिक मनाने के लिए चले गए, और फिर देर वर 4-5 लोग वहां पे कैंपिंग कर रहे थे, एंड सब लोग एक के बाद एक वहां पे दे वर एंजॉयिंग, दे वर हैविंग फन. और फिर धीरे धीरे करके ना एक बंदा गायब होता गया वहां से, एंड दे वर जस्ट हैविंग फन. और फिर एक बंदे को पता नहीं कहाँ गायब हो गया, फिर अचानक थोड़ी देर के बाद दूसरा बंदा भी गायब हो गया, किसी को समझ ही नहीं आ रहा था कौन गायब कर रहा है, कौन मार रहा है, इस टाइप का. तो आई डेंट रियली हैव अ स्टोरी लाइन इन माई माइंड, आई वॉज जस्ट गोइंग ऑन विद इट. बट
You are
इवन द,
going with the flow.
yeah, going with the flow. But even the naughtiest kid that was there, वो भी ना बैठ के ऐसे थोड़ी देर के बाद ना ऐसा सुन रहा है ना कि अच्छा गायब हो गए, अच्छा ये भी गायब हो गया, अरे कौन कर रहा था. एंड दिस वे 2 or 3 hours passed, एंड उन लोग सब बदमाशी बदमाशी भूल के दे वर जस्ट सिटिंग एंड दे वर इट वाज नॉट लाइक इट वाज अ ग्रेट स्टोरी और समथिंग, but that suspense element which was there, it kept even the naughtiest child which was not interested in reading, writing, anything like any creative stuff, मतलब उसका mind creativity से attracted था ही नहीं. And still he was sitting there and he was listening, and I was like, if there is something which can inspire even the most non-reader person to read something, that is a good storyline and an element of surprise. So that is what inspired me कि जो भी हम लिखते हैं उसमें कहीं ना कहीं अगर एक एलिमेंट ऑफ सरप्राइज हो, अगर एक सस्पेंस हो जो आप एंड तक मेंटेन कर सकते हो अपनी कहानी में, तो इवन इफ द person doesn't read at all, they don't enjoy reading at all, they will still stick to the end because it will keep itching him. What happened? Like, okay, this
Yeah,
is
that
exactly
itch to know what
itch to know
happened.
what happened, curiosity that we have. So I think that's what inspires me the most,
Okay.
right? That is that's why with Midnight Cachinnation, like, so earlier I used to write narrative poetry. That is like an experienced, I'm experienced in that field. Raconteur is a book of narrative poetry. Each poem has a story which has been narrated in a poetic format. So they are all just individual stories, 20 different stories which have been narrated like poems. But Midnight Cachinnation is proper,
Yeah, it's
like,
a thriller, paranormal horror type of book.
thriller stories. So the most difficult thing about writing thrillers is that I used to enjoy a lot, but I never thought that I could actually write thrillers. The main reason is that it is very challenging because you have to maintain that element of surprise. Like you have to
You
keep
have to
several
keep giving the
characters.
reader some
Yeah,
unexpected twists.
suspicion you have to put on several characters, and then so
Yeah.
that they are not able to guess. Like, I'm not saying that they will not be able to guess, maybe they will guess in half of the stories, but because I'm not that experienced yet. But I was like, let's get some reviews, let's see what people have to say. And so far I have gotten such amazing reviews of both the books. Like if you check the Amazon comment
Yeah,
section,
yeah.
most of them have like enjoyed, and they are really that whole that the cover art which like you guys have designed it, like the castle and the mysterious
Yeah, the
things.
creepy cobwebs
Yeah,
everywhere
so
around.
that what I always had in mind when I think about mysteries and all. And tell me one thing, Pari, like, do you really want to be a part of a crime scene in real life? I don't think you want to
No,
be.
of course not.
Nobody wants that. Like, we don't want to be a part of an actual murder mystery. Like, nobody wants that. But through reading, through literature, we can make people experience the things that they can't actually do it, but they can do it in fiction. So
We have a
it's
curiosity to do it, but
yes,
we don't actually want to do
we
it.
don't actually want that, right? You might want to step in a detective's shoes and you might want to solve a case, but you don't actually want to be when there is a crime scene going on. That's the major inspiration, to give people some experience which they haven't and they can't.
And I think one of the greatest thing is when I was reading it, I was hooked with your writing style. The way you kept the flow going throughout the plot was amazing, mind blowing. And to hook the readers, you need to know how to write it. You can't information overload them. You can't give them a vague information which won't interest them. So, what do you have to say about your writing style?
So, as I said, that I just want to keep a constant storyline going. But sometimes I'm in so much hurry for telling the story. कि like नहीं मेरे को ये चीजें बतानी है कि ये हुआ था. I have this in mind. That sometimes I forget to provide a beautiful description of the things that as an author you have to make the reader
Build
experience.
it
Like
along. Yeah.
अगर वो बारिश में बैठा हुआ है बगल में fireplace है, तो you have to give that feeling through your writing that the rain was pattering and there was fire and all. So sometimes I'm in so much hurry to tell them that okay no, इसके बाद वो आ गया कि उससे मिलने वो आया, that I sometimes forget कि अरे यार ये बारिश का भी तो बोलना था. But also I have realized that some people like that, like they say
कुछ लोगों को they want to
yeah,
know what happened, what
mainly
happened.
because we have very less attention span these days.
Yeah.
So they are like कि भाई हमको पता है बारिश क्या है, हमको पता है क्या तुम आगे का बताओ. So we want to hear the story because हम Netflix देखेंगे ना, नहीं तो we will watch Amazon Prime. Why would we read a book? Like so you have to make a fast progress. So writing का भी change हुआ है बहुत time से. Like if you check out like old classics and all. So
Yeah, the Victorian era, they were more
yeah,
focused on the
exactly.
little
There
details. But
little
now,
details, pace of
yeah,
storyline, everything has changed these days. So
it has
I'm
evolutionized.
yeah, I'm trying to keep up with time, but let's
I think
see
you are
what
doing a
happens.
fantastic job because you
Thank you.
had me hooked and I don't really read thrillers.
See, I have not paid her. She is genuinely saying this thing from
Yeah,
her heart.
yeah, it's totally genuine. I do not say this to everyone. I say it to very specific people. And I really think that the Midnight Cachinations book had me hooked. It had my soul. I sat down to edit and read it at 12 at the midnight. And I just couldn't put it down. I had to know. And as soon as one story finished, I was like, I haven't got enough of it. मुझे और पढ़ना है, मुझे आगे पढ़ना है.
Yes, mission accomplished. I think. Also, if you don't like the editing, now you know whom to blame. So another mission accomplished.
No, I really genuinely think that you should go for a second volume in thrillers section. I think your talent, you have a lot of talent in that section. आप जिस हिसाब से बोल रहे थे, it was mind blowing, awesome.
Thank you, thank you. So my since I have been doing poetry, I already have two books of poetry. The first being the other one Corsage, and this being the Raconteur. So I was always like, even while writing poetry, so you must be knowing that nowadays people like free verse poetry more because they feel that putting poem into rhymes
Restricts.
and it restricts the thought of the poet. But the thing is that some poets, including myself, we think in rhyming schemes only.
Yeah,
So when
I get it.
like suppose a person stutters and they speak while they speak and they stutter while they speak, but you must have seen that sometimes they sing and गाना आराम से निकल जाता है in a rhythmic way. So I think our the thoughts of rhyming poets is like that. If we just start writing, now it will become like a story, not a poem. You can't think like that कि अच्छा अब इसको यहाँ पे रोकना है. But if we have a structure and we have a rhyme scheme, तो वो thought free flow में निकलता है. People
आता
think that
रहेगा.
yes, so people think that it's being enforced, like जबरदस्ती rhyme कर रहा है. But the truth is that some people think like that. They think in rhymes only. So
It
आगे
flows out of us like that.
exactly in a rhythmic format. So that is like people think कि मतलब बचपन में like the readers that we used to read in school and all, most of them used to have rhyming poetry, but nowadays it's kind of out of fashion.
Yeah,
But
it's more free verse
free verse is
style.
more in. So I think if you compare, like, so I also have a poem about it. Like, if you permit me, I will
Yeah, yeah,
read,
sure.
read it out. Like,
We'd love to hear it.
okay. So, like, the title of this poem is Out of Trend. So, someone told me my style of writing was old school and out of trend. My habit of rhyming every second line and forcing the poem to shape and bend. My poems felt so artificial and choreographed, they might as well be a dance. They sound like they have never touched my heart and felt like a nursery rhyme at a glance. As a millennial who grew up in the 90s, devouring poems of the ancient mariner and Matilda Jane, I was waiting to get irrelevant any moment. When then I said my to, and when I said to myself, wait, this is insane. When a dance is planned and synchronized, it means the dancers have toiled to perfection. And no matter how much we love random dancing, we still respect a perfectly timed formation. Free verse poetry is like dancing in the rain, while a rhyming one is like enjoying a boat ride. One gives you the rawness of earthy fragrance, while the other takes you oscillating with the tide. Some even agree that my language is very pedestrian. My honesty with my mediocrity doesn't impress enough, and that true art comes from a lot of pain. For that, I didn't even look depressed enough. They want you to bleed through your they want you to bleed through your words and recite the same in a tone so bold. Everything that's bold definitely shines, even if all that shines isn't gold. Hence, I sit again with a pen, jotting down again a silly rhyme, matching the end of sentences like a little game, thinking of simpler times. Thank you.
I think you perfectly captured the essence of what all of us rhyme writers feel. And I loved how you compared the dance. And I totally agree with it. As much as we love those random dances, we appreciate the dances, the perfectly choreographed
Exactly.
dances. And I loved कि आपने कैसे बारिश के साथ उसको compare किया.
Yeah, because both have their own kind of beauty.
They
Free
are
verse
very
is beautiful,
different. आप
and so is
compare
this.
नहीं कर सकते writing
Yes, exactly.
styles को.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you on this. So, just so that our viewers can get to know you a bit more, we'll
Okay.
play a little game. So, what happens in this game is I give you a word or a phrase, and आपको the first thing that comes to your mind, you have to say that.
The first thing that always comes to my mind is food. So whatever you say, I'll be thinking about food. So I don't know if this game will work on me. We can try though. But
I think
let's see.
we'd love to hear about your food preferences. We haven't had that with any of our authors.
Pixie and Pexels is
I'm
starting a food
curious.
company as well or something like that.
We'll start a food blogging. We'll
Yes.
have you with us on that. Okay, so the first word that I have is art.
Colorful. I think that's the
Okay, that comes to my mind too.
yeah.
Whenever I sit down and take interview of authors, and some authors they have such deep thoughts. I love those the way they think, and then I'm like, मैं तो एकदम सीधा साधा सोचती
Exactly.
हूँ भाई.
And especially my dad is an artist, so he is a very passionate wildlife artist, very detailed and all that. And the colors that he uses are very natural. Like if he's making a tiger, वो actually tiger का जो color है ना वो ही use करके बनाएंगे, and it will be very realistic. And photo और paint art में different नहीं समझ में आएगा. But for me, it's always about colors, like random colors anywhere. So that's the
Yeah,
reason.
I can agree with you. I respect those philosophical people, but I find it hard to incorporate that
Yeah, I feel too
philosophical
pedestrian for those
aspect.
kind of thought process. So I'm like, okay, not one of these.
Okay, so the next word which we have is fame.
Desire. I think I do desire fame, but um, like since you are asking me these questions right now, आई ऑलवेज थॉट बचपन से ना कि अगर मेरे को कोई पूछेगा ना कि व्हाट लाइक इंटरव्यू करेंगे मेरे को एकदम तो आई विल से दिस आई विल से दैट बिकॉज व्हेन आई गेट फेमस आई हैड ऑल दोज आंसर्स रिटन कि हाँ व्हेन आई गेट फेमस आई विल से दिस बट अभी फेमस हुए नहीं बट someone is taking my interview and still I'm like so confused like I desire fame but will I be able to handle it like I'm not sure so maybe I do desire fame but I'm not famous.
I think what I appreciate in your interview is the honesty of your answers because not many people have the courage to say that they desire fame.
Yeah.
Many of us do, and that's completely okay, that's natural. It's like it has been so stigmatized कि आपको money desire करना, fame desire
अटेंशन
करना,
चाहिए हाँ.
attention, that's wrong. And that's not wrong. Everything is right, but up to a limit.
यस डेफिनेटली बिल्कुल एकदम सही बात है.
Okay, so the next word we have is paranormal.
मिडनाइट कैकिनेशन
I was
अवेलेबल ऑन Amazon.
expecting it. You know, when I was framing the questions,
Yeah.
I was actually thinking that when I asked this one, I would get the name of Midnight
Midnight
Cachinations.
Cachinnation. Like, I am promoting my book everywhere. You wake me up from sleep and you ask what is your name, I'll say Midnight Cachinnation and Raconteur available on Amazon. And go and buy it.
I think that's the case with all us writers, the ones who are still budding, still on the
Yeah, like
process
we
of.
were having those snacks and all while watching movie last night, and I called it Midnight Snackination because we were having snacks at night. So yeah, that's how much I am into promoting my book right now.
I
Bring it
go
on.
on and on about my books, and my friends are like, "Ab band kar behan और नहीं सुनना है भी no."
We have already brought it. Review भी कर दिया अब छोड़.
Okay. So next one is a phrase. Pen is mightier than sword. What are your
Um,
opinions on it?
well, earlier, like if you talk about like that Game of Thrones era kind of a thing, then I would say no, sword is mightier. But in today's time, pen, that means not like literally pen, but the way we form news and the way we inform people, the power that media has, it's unbeatable. Like, of course, like the way things are presented and all those things matter a lot. Perspective matters a lot. How things are being presented to you matters a lot. Like I read a quote yesterday that अगर इंडिपेंडेंस के टाइम पे मीडिया होता तो पता नहीं हम लोग इंडिपेंडेंट होते या नहीं, या मे बी ब्रिटिश लोगों को इतना ग्लैमराइज कर दिया जाता कि शायद हम सोचते कि इससे निकलना ही नहीं है. मे बी दिस इज हाउ लाइफ शुड बी. लाइक दे आर वाइट पीपल ब्रिंग प्रोग्रेस. उस
Yeah.
टाइम भी इस टाइप की थिंकिंग थी. ज्यादा एडवर्टाइज नहीं हो पाई थैंकफुली. सो लाइक दैट्स जस्ट अ like dystopian kind of a thought. That doesn't necessarily mean कि ऐसा होता. Maybe media also would have been put into a good use and all. But yes, definitely, it's really, really mighty right now.
Yeah, I think that media has a dramatic influence कि आप कैसे सोचते हो. Because
बिल्कुल.
अगर आप एक ही चीज को बार बार देखो ना, तो in some way you start getting influenced by it.
एंड इफ स्वॉर्ड इज एक्चुअली माइटियर देन पेन, तो जब लोग स्वॉर्ड पकड़ते हैं तो वो लोगों का पेन नहीं छीनते. दे वुड हैव लेट पीपल फ्रीली राइट एंड वर्क. बट जैसे तालिबान हो या कहीं भी हो, द फर्स्ट थिंग दैट दे डू इज दे ट्राई टू कंट्रोल पीपल्स लाइक वे ऑफ एक्सप्रेशन को, उसको कंट्रोल करते हैं. न्यूज बंद करो, ये बंद करो, लोगों से लिखने का इंटरनेट बंद करो, इस टाइप की चीजें. वाई? बिकॉज दे द स्वॉर्ड इज स्कैर्ड ऑफ द पेन. अदरवाइज उसको कोई फर्क ही नहीं पड़ता ना.
Yeah, I think that's a very deep thing you have said, though you say that you are very pedestrian type,
Yeah.
but I actually agree with it. Sword sometimes is scared of pen.
Yes, बिल्कुल.
Okay, so the next word we have, actually it's a group of words you can say, and I think most of the bookworms here like it. It is smell of books.
Yes.
So the first thing that comes to your mind when you think of this smell of books, what is it?
I think Agatha Christie books, because they smell really nice. I think I buy it half of the time because it smells so nice. Like I'm doing weird shit in bookstores, and abhi corona ke time pe to kar bhi nahi sakte because people would be like, "Put back your mask, dude. What are you doing?" But when I used to go to bookstores, Agatha Christie books used to smell so nice, even after being like decades old. I don't know what material they used or what. So I used to bring them home, and that kahin na kahin is responsible for my love for thrillers. Like Agatha Christie is the queen of like was the queen of crime fiction. So her books
I think
are
we can agree. We all have at least one book of Agatha Christie sitting on our bookshelves.
definitely, and her book like and then there were none. It's like my favorite book, and it also smells amazing. I don't know how it does, but it smells amazing. So I think that's why I hate when all the books are kept in a really terrible way, like there is no maintenance, because then the smell gradually goes away, and then now it smells of dust and stuff. So that's why it's important to take care of your books, because I love the smell of books.
I love it too. And I think most of us can agree we love the smell of books. Okay, so the last phrase you can say, or a group of words for this one, is sparks.
Sparks in your heart. I think like the feeling that you get when you know that you are successful or happy. So like people used to say, when you are getting married or some moment like that, your heart will feel sparks inside, or your stomach will feel butterflies or something.
Butterflies, yeah.
Yeah, and that will show in your face because that's a very special moment for you. But I have also seen people's face glow up, and I've seen sparks coming out of people in moments like their convocations. Since I am getting my third degree right now, so I have seen like a couple of convocations, and the moment when, especially a girl, when she goes up on stage and she gets her first degree, the spark that you see on her face, it's
It
coming through her
lights
heart,
up the room.
lights up. I have never seen, even brides I have never seen so happy. Like the happiness that is there, that dude, I have achieved something. This I have worked hard for years and I have gotten this particular degree. So that brings a different kind of spark on their face. So I think that feeling is what comes into my mind when I hear this word, because uh, it doesn't mean that you only can look that beautiful when you are a bride. Even with less makeup and with more of that spark on your face, you can look even more beautiful on your convocation, maybe.
Definitely. And I think most of the people associate sparks and butterflies in the stomach with either nervousness or love and all
Or
that. But
romance,
I
yeah.
think, yeah, but I think that when you achieve something in your life,
Yes.
you get that same feeling, that
A better feeling, in
butterflies.
fact, yeah, because now there is no fear. You know that you have gone this is your moment. So
It's definitely, and I would like to say it's definitely your moment, Kanchan. So, how do you feel? Actually, I forgot to ask the most important question, and I saw a couple of media features, news coverage. How do you feel? Like, is it overwhelming for you? Do you feel that you might be, carried away in this world or something?
actually, no, not carried away, because I don't know. I'm still waiting to get famous. I'm not famous yet. So let me be famous, then I will answer that question whether I'm being carried away or not. And like people often ask me this kind of question, like, you are doing PhD, how are you maintaining this work-life balance? Are you feeling overwhelmed? Are you feeling like this
In
might
fact,
be
that was my next question. That how do you manage your PhD studies with
Yeah.
your
So, I can say very big words right now, that I do this to manage, I do that to manage. But the truth is that I'm not really very good at managing, and I'm not actually like doing much to manage. So what happened was, before I got in touch with you guys, just like I had completely stopped writing after my first book. It's been 7 years. I had never written anything, but then suddenly, like due to writing challenges and all those things, I started writing again. And मेरा जो राइटिंग ब्लॉक है वो ऐसा क्लियर हुआ ना, कि मतलब एकदम से आई गॉट क्रेजी कि नहीं भाई अब तो लिखना ही है, अभी क्लियर हुआ है 7 साल बाद, अब लिखना ही है. सो आई लेफ्ट एवरीथिंग एल्स एंड आई स्टार्टेड राइटिंग, एंड इन वन गो आई कंप्लीटेड बोथ द बुक्स. एंड ऐसा नहीं है कि देयर वाज नो
God.
वर्क. द
एज क्लियर हो गया सामने से पर्दा उठ गया जैसे
हाँ,
लग
एकदम
रहा है
लाइक ऑल द थॉट्स दैट आई हैड accumulated for these 7 years, वो सारा ऐसा भड़बड़ भड़बड़ निकाला है. So the thought it goes the thought went on for 7 years, but the writing and the final compilation thing that you guys helped me with, तो उसमें ज़्यादा टाइम नहीं लगा. It happened from June, July, August, and that time I was like not able to do my research as well, and I'm still struggling with it, like how to maintain the balance and how to, because with research writing, I'll tell you, for a person who is a creative writer or literary writer, it is so frustrating to write a research paper because every sentence you have to cite other people, every sentence you have to provide some data or something. 100
I
times
feel,
you have to think it.
yeah, and we can't stop. Our
Yeah,
type of writers are that once we get into the flow
yeah,
of writing, we find it difficult to stop, and constantly stopping to
exactly.
cite people, to cite resources. It's frustrating for
Yeah.
us.
To see whether it's correct or not, to provide data, to quote someone, it's so frustrating and so difficult that the people who are not good writers might have it easy this way because they already have to think a lot before writing. So, research writing for people like me who like authors and all, it's
Okay, so I think now would be a fair time to ask you that how did you manage to clear off your author's block, writer's block? That's something a lot of us face. We sit
yeah.
down with a pen, we feel like, okay, today I am going to write something. It's been months since I've written something, and then you just can't get the pen to flow.
So, like, I used to set up an alarm for 12 a.m. and I used to be like कि आज दिन भर में ये thought I used to have in mind, ये लिखना ही है चाहे कुछ भी हो जाए, because if I let myself wander off तो नहीं होगा. तो we always feel like poetry should be free, it should naturally come and all, पर थोड़ा धक्का देना पड़ता है. If you
हाँ, seriously,
don't push,
I can
नहीं
never
होगा.
relate to people जो बोलते हैं that you don't need a time for poetry, you
हाँ,
can just do
exactly.
it freely. Huh. So we talked about authors blogs and how you have to give a little push ताकि आपके वो words flow out होना start करें. One of the things many people actually ask in the Pixie and Pexels comment section and all, is that एज अ राइटर क्या आपको अपने जॉनरे पे फोकस करना चाहिए उसको बेटर इम्प्रूव करने के लिए, या यू शुड ट्राई आउट डिफरेंट जॉनरे? सो व्हाट्स योर टेक ऑन दिस?
So I have actually experienced a lot with experimented a lot with different genre. Like even through poetry, I try like especially ये जो love romance वाला जो theme है ना, I'm telling you, it's very tempting. Every time you feel something, you feel like अरे यार अब तो लिखना है शायरी, मतलब लिखने ही शुरू करनी है, प्यार मोहब्बत इश्क वाला. But it's very tempting, and you feel like you should write in इस type का, or maybe you should if you have suffered, if you're feeling some kind of sad feelings, you always feel like writing sad stuff. But I think even poetry में ना, you should at least शुरुआत में, like once before you discovering your genre, you should actually experiment a bit, because even if you're writing poetry, try to write. If you always write sad stuff, try to write a happy thing once, or try to write something with a social message. Social messages, maybe there are different type, like are you writing about the environment, or you're writing about feminism, or you're writing about some other social stigma or
And
something.
other things, yeah.
Yeah, you should experiment, क्योंकि हमें लगता है कि we have found our genre by the, but the truth is, even till your early 30s or your late 30s, still you will be experimenting a bit, because वो एकदम से नहीं आता है. It's not that simple. I feel like कि अगर हम experiment नहीं करेंगे, but it's not like you're good at something and you're just kicking it out to do something else, like उस type का चीज में नहीं करना है. But I experimented with thrillers this time. I was not confident because I had never written thrillers before. Midnight Cachinnation is my first attempt at thrillers, and now that you're saying and several other people have told me that they really liked it, वो नहीं पता चलता अगर experiment नहीं होता तो, क्योंकि I
And I
always thought that
think
हाँ,
people just expect कि ऐसे click हो जाएगा, but it isn't like that.
it's a
It's a
long process.
process. It's a long whole process you have to
I
go
have
through.
written bad thrillers for years, like unpublished work. I have written so many unpublished stories which are thriller stories, but they are not good. People have told me कि इसमें मजा नहीं आया. So I kept trying, and then finally
You
I
have to be persistent as a
yeah,
writer. I feel
I was
a very
persistent.
big quality is being persistent.
Yeah. तब जाके वो निखर के आएगा. What you are doing, वो एक बार में नहीं आएगा. तो experimenting is
Yeah, you have
important.
to be persistent,
And
continuously keeping on doing it.
yeah,
So, Kanchan, you have written Midnight Cachinnation, and it's not one story, it's a collection of stories,
yeah,
Midnight Cachinnation.
yeah, yeah.
So, would you tell us that if there was some story, one particular story which you particularly connected with, like it hit home?
Most of them did actually, but I think my favorite story is there is a story called The Contemporaries. I think that is my favorite story because I have read so much of Stephen King and other like Agatha Christie stuff that I like to mix normal with supernatural slightly. And Contemporaries is a perfect blend of that. Apart from that, there is one another story called Nostalgia. So the basic concept of nostalgia is that nothing is as good as you remember it. Like when you look back in time, कि स्कूल का टाइम था या कॉलेज का टाइम, यू विल ऑलवेज फील अरे यार कितने सुहाने दिन थे यार, अब तो कहाँ
It
वैसा.
isn't actually
It
like
isn't
this.
actually that good. If you go back in time and see what was going on around you and the problematic things that were you were tolerating because you were naive, you did not know that people should act this way, and you even too young to understand that. So you endured it and you were like, ah, cheek it chalta hai. So you were too like you're not that sensitive. Now that you see, oh, these people were so problematic, man. I was hanging out with them all the time. Maybe, but we have a way of looking at those things with a rosy glass, and we think that, oh, बहुत beautiful tha. So it is a story, it is a commentary on that. So nostalgia and contemporaries, and there are a few stories which are the longer ones. According to what readers have told me, they are reading the shorter ones pehle, and they're giving me reviews on that. But longer wala padne mein kya hai, people don't have that much of reading habit nowadays, so they are
In
like,
fact, I loved your longer stories too.
yeah, the
I
longer ones are
don't,
better, guys.
yeah, I don't remember the name of the story. Story. I'm so sorry, but there was this
Yeah.
one story, oh Rajkumari wala.
Yes, the
I
Tower of
loved that.
Betrayal.
Ha ha. Yes, correct. The Tower of Betrayal. I loved that story. I think it was so hooking. I loved how each character was formed. It was just like us. I could feel the emotions because I could relate with them.
Yeah, I want to write characters which are relatable, which we can हम जैसा सोच रहे हैं ना, हमें ऐसा लगे कि हाँ ये तो सही सोच रहा है, हम भी होते तो ऐसा ही सोचते. ज्यादा पोएटिक नहीं कि कभी कभी ना बुक्स पढ़ते टाइम यू फील लाइक why is he doing this, why would anyone do this.
Ah, seriously, it's totally illogical stuff
Yeah.
which they do,
Yeah,
and उसमें truth नहीं है.
unrelatable, like you can't relate to it even if it's not logical, or maybe it's logical in some way but you don't connect to it. So I wanted to write a story, so the longer ones, like the like as you said, Tower of Betrayal, it takes up a lot of Midnight Cachinations pages, so I feel like the read the longest ones as well, and they are like just as amazing. They are actually, I connect to them better because they give you time for character development and to understand the characters better.
As an author, it's easier to, not easier, I would say, but I think it's somewhere it helps you with the character development because you get time to develop the
Yes.
characters. And as a reader, it's good to enjoy a longer journey,
Enjoy,
you know.
yeah. You can decide, okay, this character is my favorite or this one I hate. So that
And
also
the
helps.
opinions change. I know my opinions changed a lot throughout this story. I think that's the beauty of thriller, you know. Your
Very good.
opinion keeps on changing. There's not one particular fixed opinion.
And if you don't like the story at all, at least you take one good thing out of it. That is, चलो ये तो पता चल गया एंड में कौन था, मतलब किसने क्या किया. And at least that's the minimum good thing that you take out of a thriller story. ये तो कई stories पढ़ के ऐसे थे यार, रोमांस भी अच्छा नहीं था, क्राइसिस में भी मजा नहीं आया, तो भिखारी था पूरा. तो thrillers, I think they disappoint you the least because at least surprise element तो था, if not anything.
Yeah, I think everyone can agree. हो सकता है not many people not many people like, sorry for the mispronunciation. Yeah,
Right.
it's not many people like all types of writing styles, but the way you find out the plot, I think thrillers में that's an advantage कि अगर आपका plot अच्छा है तो you can make up for your writing style because that plot keeps you hooked.
Suppose I come and give you a pen and a diary, Pari, you will like it. You will be like, okay, nice, thank you. But if I put it in a beautiful gift wrap, I wrap it with some, ribbon and all, and then I give it
Yeah,
to you. You're like, "Arey, kya hai yaar isme? What is it?" And then you open it, it's a pen and a diary. But you will be happier because it's a gift. It has an element of surprise. So I think thriller stories work that way. Not necessarily everyone will agree with me, but I am promoting my book, so cut me some slack here.
I think I loved your nostalgia one also. It was so, I don't know. I was constantly, first I thought that this person is
Okay, it was
suspicious.
confusing. Yeah,
Yeah. And then when the vibe came out to be suspicious, I was like, okay, damn. Okay. It's okay. The author was probably having some different thinking.
yeah.
Okay, so thinking leads me to the question. So it's a bit controversial question, but many writers who write crime thrillers, they are not as positively received many times because many people think that they have this negative vibe around them. They have this
Hmm.
vibe of violence and all. So what do you have to say for it?
Do I look dangerous to you? If I do, then I have succeeded. So, see, my appearance is deceiving me. See, people read the stories and they're like, dude, you don't even, you look so normal. How can you think such sinister stuff and write about it? Such
Yeah,
morbid stuff you are writing about killing people off and everything. I said, this is not even level one. My thoughts can go to extreme violence also. So that is also a way, outlet kind of a thing. So when it's important, whether it's a thriller story or a thriller movie or anything, the characters are not like, they are not treated as people. See, they are treated as uh, like, जैसे chess board के ऊपर गोटी होती है ना, they are
हाँ,
treated
they're
like that. Okay,
pieces.
now you have to kill this one off, that one off. It's not like you're detached to them. आप खेल रहे हो तो आप अपनी गोटियों से भी attached हो ना, you are attached to the
But
like,
you do sacrifice sometimes, and
yeah.
ultimately the goal is to
To
win.
win, you make some sacrifices and you feel bad कि हाँ अरे उसने मेरा ये वाला हाथी घोड़ा मतलब वो कर दिया. But the thing is कि you have to make those sacrifices to make a point that you're trying to make. So I think we also have a lot to lose as a writer कि हाँ यार ये character तो अच्छा जा रहा था, now I have to kill this one off, so sad. So
And I think
that
sometimes more than actually most of the time, more than readers, the writers bond with their characters. They
बिल्कुल.
become our imaginary friends.
And they are
Especially
often,
for people like me who are
yes.
who have very few friends.
Exactly. And most of the characters that you will be writing कहीं ना कहीं किसी एक real person से थोड़ा inspired रहता ही है always. So yeah, like you also get attached to those characters a lot.
We have talked a lot about
Yeah,
midnight calculations, and I think
yeah,
now it's time to proceed on to the raconteur.
yeah,
I love those stories, to be honest. They were so sweet. But one story, one actually narrative poem that hit me hard was that Prince and the Girl's story, where the girl's thing gets taken away and into the
yeah. The
palace.
first one,
Yeah.
Raj Mahal one. Yeah,
And somewhere I feel that your ability to express situations which clearly you haven't been, like, of course, you haven't seen a real Rajkumar and all.
yeah.
Like, you might
How
have,
do
I
you know
don't,
that?
you might have, yeah, you might have. But I think you haven't actually seen
Yeah.
the scene, SCENE वाला scene of your stories and all. But still आप इतने अच्छे से उसको portray कर पा रहे हो. It's like you are weaving a web for us readers. I loved those narrative poems. They were so sweet.
And it is so challenging to throw give a message through that tiny like 4 5 pages ka hi to hai, like every story, even when you write a story it exceeds 4 5 pages, at least 6 7 pages to ho hi jate. But for narrative poetry, like there is a lot of limitation, you can't exceed a certain length. After that people will get like, "Boy, what is going on, everything is rhyming, nothing is making sense."
And तब से तो चल ही रहा है, चल
चल
ही
नहीं
रहा
रहा
है.
है. And
Like
people
people
tend
have
to,
this notion
yeah,
कि poem छोटे होने चाहिए. They
छोटी होनी
don't
चाहिए. They get
understand.
exhausted by reading those छोटे छोटे lines and they are like, yeah, this is going on for too long. So it's,
So especially people like me who don't have friends, I think connecting to characters as a
yeah,
writer is a very big thing. And I
you
think
get,
most of
you tend to get connected to characters, and then when in a thriller story you have to like kill one off or something, it
it's
becomes a challenge.
heartbreaking.
But it's like a sacrifice that you make to make a point across.